Hey all, it's DavionFuxa, and I've got something interesting basically to look at. I figured that I've run across this political compass page. I've actually seen this before, but well, I figured for those people who may be interested in knowing what sort of political affiliation I sort of have, I looked at this test and this sort of showcase it that way, and just sort of give you sort of a bit of information about the inner workings of my mind, so to speak, and all that. So, the political compass. This is basically something that's been on the net since 2001, and it basically takes a unique approach to sort of identifying where you lie on a political spectrum. Unlike the traditional left to right pole type of idea, this takes a sort of 2D square type of approach where it has two lines measuring where you are, and all that. And basically how it works, you take a test here, it gives you a bunch of questions, and when you're done, it basically tells you where you lie in the graph. So, page 106 of the test, just a few propositions to start with, considering a little less how you see the country and the world. So, if economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. So basically you get all these questions, and you basically go strongly disagree, disagree, agree, or strongly agree. And once you're basically done answering all these different questions, it'll basically tell you where you lie on the scale left to right, and authoritarian or libertarian. So you can actually see the names right here: authoritarian left, authoritarian right, libertarian left, and libertarian right. Basically, that's how this graph is measured. So where do I lie? All right. So the first things first: if economic globalization is inevitable, it should probably serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. To be honest, I actually think that globalization is something that is probably inevitable, and it's probably going to happen. And I think it'll probably rather serve the transnational corporations than the human interest. Economically, humanity, humanity has to basically govern itself, and set rules and guidelines for businesses and enterprises. But for economic purposes, a transnational would probably benefit the most. So yeah, I strongly agree with this. I've always supported my country, whether it's right or wrong. No, I strongly disagree. If my country's wrong, then it's wrong. I don't want to support it if it's wrong. No one chooses his or her own country at birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. No, I disagree with that. If you're born somewhere, you probably should be proud of it. Be proud of your history and stuff like that. There is winners and losers, sadly, and that's just a fact of life. So, yeah, I agree with that. Moderately agree with that. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. No, strongly disagree. Everyone's more or less equal, in my opinion. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I disagree with that. It's possible the enemy of my enemy is still my enemy, so to speak. So, yeah. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Not really something I would justify. I actually sort of disagree with this. I think if it's in line with international law, then great. But if it's not in line with international law, then there's probably a problem with continued war and stuff like that. It's going to cause problems. That's how problems occur, World War stuff. So yeah, I would disagree with this. I don't think military action should be defying international law. There is now worrying freedom of information and entertainment. I don't really agree with that. I mean, information can be entertaining. I don't see anything wrong with that. All right, next page. So now the economy, we're talking attitudes here, not the FTSE index. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. I strongly agree with that. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. That's a hard question. I'm sort of on the fence with that one, but I'll say I'll disagree with it because I think unemployment is something that you should probably focus on just to make sure it's not rampant. Because then you have riots and stuff, problems. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Yes, strongly agree. That's, the realm of like what humans are required. What, business like can't be expected to do. That's what humanity has to be expected to do. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. There's some merit to what this is saying. Like, if you're good at something, you should probably be, like doing it. And if if you need something, you should be like, and all that. But I'll say I disagree with it. I don't really understand the premise, but I don't think it makes sense from like the gist of it, linguistics wise. It's a sad reflection of our society as something as basic as drinking water is now bottled branded consumer product. Yeah, I disagree with that. There's just some things that shouldn't be branded and made like, sort of like commodity value and all that. Land should be commodity but be bought and sold. Disagree with that though. I mean, some things like, resources like water, yeah, I can say I disagree with that. But land, I can somewhat agree with that. If like, if you're wealthy and all that, you deserve to be able to buy like better land and stuff like that. But drinking water is like a need that you sort of need. We have problems like, and water is a scarce resource, so land isn't as scarce. So at this time, I don't really disagree with that as much. It's regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to our society. Yeah, I agree with that. Some people should actually try and commit, their money to like causes, shall we say. Protection is sometimes necessary in trade. I think we've got to the point where I sort of disagree with this. If everyone like is trading equally and like in good practice, then I don't see it as a bad thing necessarily. I think we've sort of reached that point where you have to start taking out protectionism, aspects from trade, so that you can like get along with everyone trade wise. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. I strongly agree with this. Economically, that's what companies should be doing. It's just focus on the economics, and then like law holders and government makers should just make it so that they have to respect the environment and everything else after that. Richard too highly taxed, strongly disagree. Just because if you're rich, then you really should be paying a higher, tax than everyone else. That's my opinion. I don't see it as a bad thing. Shouldn't be too high, but they're not too highly taxed, I don't think. Those with the ability to pay should have the right to higher standards of Medicare, strongly disagree. Everyone should have the right to better health care, in my opinion. Government should penalize businesses that mislead the public, strongly agree. You should be misleading the public. You should, give the consumers a generally good understanding of what the product they're going to buy and all that. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predatory multinationals to create monopolies. I agree with this. I can see some benefit to allowing like a predatory multinational sort of create a monopoly, but not really. There should be some barriers to it, at least somewhat. The freedom of the market, the freedom of the people. Disagree. Sometimes it's good to sort of like make it so that marketing is so free, so that people can't game it. All right, now look at some of the personal social values. So this is where things will probably get a little bit interesting. Abortion, when a woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Strongly disagree. Women should have full, control for reproductive rights. All 40 should be questioned. Agree. Sometimes, you have to question 40 because like that's how you make sure you keep it in check. An eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. No, I strongly disagree with that. If punishment is required, great, but always look to like trying to treat the problem so that it doesn't occur again. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up the theaters and museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. I disagree with this. Arts and stuff like that. That's sort of important to keep alive. Schools should not be classroom attendance compulsory. I kind of disagree with that. I think the schools should actually make classroom attendance compulsory, just so that kids are always learning. For the most part, I can see some benefits not to allowing it, but I just like partially disagree with that more or less. All people have their rights, but it's better for all of us to, of all of us, different sorts of people should keep it to their own kind. I strongly disagree. You should interact with other people just so you can know what they're all about. Breed discontent for other people. That's how you breed discontent. You stay in your own clusters and such. You have to interact with them. Give parents some method of respect their children. Strongly disagree. No questions asked. Don't punish your children like that. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Yeah, I agree with that. There is some secrets that you should keep secret, like say your religious beliefs, perhaps. If you're in a culture like the States, for example. Like I'm an atheist, right? So if I was in that sort of culture of the high degree of Christianity, there are probably reasons to keep my atheist secret down there. Not so much up here in Canada. It's a little bit safer up here to let people know who I am. Somewhat. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. I don't think marijuana should be criminalized. So I guess I sort of agree with this, but I don't strongly agree with it. Because if marijuana is outlawed, then you shouldn't be taking it yourself. Prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generations to find jobs. I agree with this. They should also learn a lot about the world, but they should also learn how to find jobs as well. And I know in Canada, for example, this is not happening, which is not something I'm too happy about, but oh well. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Strongly disagree. Shouldn't be they should make it known to their spouse and such that they have these disabilities, but they shouldn't necessarily outlaw them for doing it. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. Disagree. Yeah, I don't accept. They shouldn't accept anything at face value, especially discipline. There are no savages and civilized peoples. There's only different cultures. Strongly disagree. Yes, there are savages in the world. Sorry, that's just how it is. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. Yeah, I agree with that. Strongly agree, actually. If you have the ability to work, you should work. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. I sort of agree with that. That's sort of I don't necessarily agree with it, but I can see the value in doing so. I don't agree with it with the fact say work hard so you don't think about it. You should actually think about things that trouble you just so you can try and solve them. Or you should talk to people about it perhaps as well. That'd be what I suggest. Talk to people about it so you can try and overcome them. What's troubling you. First generation immigrants can never fully integrate with their new country. Strongly disagree. I know lots of immigrants who've integrated with Canada, so I strongly disagree that they can't integrate. What's good for the most successful corporation is always ultimately good for all of us. Strongly disagree. The ultimate good for a corporation to make money, and that's not necessarily good for everyone else. No broadcasting institution, however independent, is content, should receive public funding. I sort of disagree with that. I see television as broadcasting is a sort of art form, and you should try and have some funding, I guess, for it where necessary. 4-6, and how you see war society. Okay, let's see here. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Yeah, I agree with this. It's happening. It's sad. I think it's necessary, but it's also sad nonetheless. Significant advantage of the one-party state is that it avoids all arguments that delay progress in a diplomatic political system. No idea, and I probably disagree just on a simple fact that just because there's one party doesn't mean that they can't argue with themselves to try and make sure they get the best possible best deal for their citizens. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. No, everyone should be worried about that. I mean, look at what the NSA did with America. Everyone should be worried. The death penalty should be option for the most serious crimes. I'm gonna agree with this. I mean, I think that there are penalties that penalties like the death penalty should be applied to some crimes, like mass murdering like dozens of people, but yeah, I think it should be allowed. Just there's some people that you can't just constantly retrain them to interact with society. They have to be put down. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to obey and people below to be commanded. No, I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, there is some things to think about in that, but not necessarily. Everyone could be equals to each other and be civil. Art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. Strongly disagree. If it's art, it's art. That's all that needs to be said about it. In criminal justice, punishment should always be more important than rehabilitation. No, strongly disagree. Rehabilitation is more important than punishment. It is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. That I do agree with it. Some people can't be rehabilitated. You have to basically kill them. The business purposes and manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. I do actually agree with this. Ultimately, I think that business and economics and stuff like that is more important than like the arts and stuff. That's not to say that the arts aren't important, but you do need to like focus on your economics to keep your country afloat, so to speak, in many ways. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Nope. They can be whatever they want. Multinational companies are unethical, exploiting plant genetic resources of developing countries. Yeah, agree. Sometimes. But, it's not our job to basically do anything about it, but, I do agree with that. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Yes. You do have to make peace with the establishment. There's some things you can't change, there's some things you can. For a moment I lost sound there, but whatever. It's going to be a long video nonetheless, so whatever. If you got through that okay, you'll find these propositions on religions a breeze. Okay, so let's see what it's about. Astrology actually explains many things. Nope. Astrology is bogus. You can't be moral without being religious. Nope. Strongly disagree with that. Charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping the generally disadvantaged. No, I disagree with that. I mean, there is something else to charity that are important, but overall, I think that Social Security can help a lot. Some people are naturally unlucky. Strongly disagree. Everyone's equal more or less. Some people just think they're unlucky. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. Strongly disagree. Shouldn't be instilling any religious values. And finally, look at sex. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. No, I disagree with that. Same-sex couple is in a stable, loving relationship, not be excluded from possibility of child adoption. Yeah, I strongly agree with that. If it's good, then it's good. Let's do it. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be illegal for the adult population. Yes, I strongly agree. I don't see any reason that you shouldn't, forbid sex, being seen by other people. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. Yes, I agree with that. These are easy. And no one can feel naturally homosexual. No, there is some people who are naturally homosexual. And these days, openness about sex has gone too far. I'm going to disagree with that. I mean, in many ways, sex isn't open enough. To be honest, it's the natural thing. It should be discussed. Now let's see where you stand. All right, so let's just sort of explain a little bit about this. So the political compass. Introduction. We explained the inadequacy of the traditional left and right, line basically. So it's worth knowing that these people, they basically made this sort of square type of idea where you have a authoritarian left, a authoritarian right, libertarian left, and libertarian right, because basically they see people like say Stalin and Hitler and Mao Tse-tung and Pol Pot and all that, and basically a lot of these people, they could be said that they're barely leftists and their economics, say Stalin. And then you also got some other people who are very democratic, but they're also very leftist. And they're not necessarily the same. The traditional left and right scale, I mean, it's only a line, so you could have someone say Margaret Thatcher right here, and you could have Hitler right there next to her. So those people aren't the same, but that's basically how the line works. This is a little bit more like descriptive of where people lie. So you have like, you have like, say, Stalin up here on like the authoritarian left, Hitler would be somewhere in the authoritarian right, etc., etc. Libertarian right would be someone like, Margaret Thatcher. You can read all this if you want, but more or less, yeah, basically, like, there's like the scale where people lie. So you see, like, Gandhi's down here, and like, he's like a leftist, a communist, anarchist type of guy. While someone like Thatcher would be on the other scale, like Gandhi, all the way up here. All right, so where do I align in the political scale? So basically, I'm sort of a left-leaning libertarian type of guy. So yeah, I'm a left libertarian. And that's like, basically just sort of like, I guess the end point of this discussion. I'm not really, surprised really by this, like, finding. Like, I don't really think that, authoritarian regimes are, like, necessarily the greatest thing, but I can see some benefit to them. But at the same time, like, I prefer, like, to be, like, a little bit more libertarian with stuff. Let the, the people decide what they want to do more or less most of the time. Economically, I'm more to the left. Free market is great, but I do feel there should be restrictions, on like the environment and stuff like that. So like it guides the company to make sure they're doing the right thing. So yeah, this was the political compass, and there's my results. Like, I'm basically like, about halfway down in the libertarian here, and then we're a little bit over in the economics. So I'm a little bit left-leaning, very libertarian. I did like a pretest about this, and that's more or less the expected result I was expecting to get. You can find a political compass at politicalcompass.org. I recommend maybe you look at it just to see if you're interested in seeing what it's all about. Hope you enjoyed the video nonetheless. For now, take care. Hope you enjoyed.